Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay, CJ, here's your weekly report. All right, so we started, and yes, it was pretty much this messy. The table was, I think, clean, but all this went into making the epoxy, except for this. So the first thing I did was I built my forms, and this was without the tape. I had the piece in here, all mocked up, and I started to build my forms, and I left this piece off so I could get it, well, I had this piece up, the whole form was in here, but I couldn't get it out. So I loosened this piece and took it off, and then we taped everything. Then I put this piece in, but I didn't tighten it all the way, just enough where I could fit the form in. Okay, so we did the eBay tape. The tape job wasn't great, so in these corners, when the piece went down, I think it broke the seal. So you can see all the epoxy right here that leaked out.
Oh, there's a lot
right
there.
And there's a big hump right here that came from somewhere, I guess, went around, who knows what happened, but it pretty much leaked on every single corner, so I didn't have a good seal. What I should have done, so two things I should have done, right? I should have done the tape all the way on the bottom, just like this, underneath everything, because you see this piece we put on last and taped underneath. Well, this piece came out, that got stuck, and all these are stuck. And then second thing we should have done was put caulking, a bead of caulking down, and then screw the piece in, and then tape it again. So anyway, form went in place. We did that. Next step was mix the epoxy. So I measured 3 inches, and then 1.5 inches on top of that. I made 2 marks, okay? Because this is a 2-to-1 pour. So part A went in first, and then part B went in second, because it takes 2 of these to 1 of these, right? 2-to-1. Well, the epoxy ate my mark, so then I came with a bright idea, and I just made marks on my stick. So we'd hold the stick in, pour, open, pour, and then put your teaspoon of pigment. Okay, mix that 1 minute, throw it in your thing. Now, minimum is a 1/2 inch of thickness to pour, right? You have to pour a 1/2 inch, otherwise it's not going to cure right. So we did that. That took, I think, 1 full thing. I think it took 1 full thing of the mix to get. It was actually 3/4, maybe 1 inch. Poured it a little thick, right? So the next step was to use these rocks. We got a bunch of these rocks. Well, then we figured out that we only had a 1/2 inch left. So I had to dump out all the rocks and figure out which ones are the small rocks that would actually fit without getting it nicked when we surfaced it. Okay, all the rocks, got them laid out exactly where they're supposed to be. It was perfect, it's beautiful. And then idea popped in my head, are you even gonna see the rocks? So now let's go over here. We did a test to see if we're gonna see the rocks. Light, come on. So we put it in there, right? There's rocks in there. Can you see them?
Nope.
No, probably not. Can you see them now? So the only way you're gonna be able to see them is if it was illuminated, and that wasn't good enough. So pulled all the rocks out, put them somewhere. I think they were left all over here. And then we, oh, back up a couple more steps. The tape job wasn't great, so in these corners, when the piece went down, I think it broke the seal, but it pretty much leaked on every single corner. So the pour was done. Well, then it started leaking. It started just oozing out from these areas. So it was oozing out right here, oozing out right here, and it was oozing out right there. It didn't ooze out of here until later. So who knows what happened. It oozed out everywhere, so then I'm in a mad scramble. Me trying to put extra screws in here, and I put these little strip pieces in there, trying to keep it contained enough to where it wouldn't come out, or at least it would be minimized when it was. So yeah, that happened. Okay, so back to where we were. So then we made second pour, which was going all the way to the top. And we'll come over here so you can see as a demonstration. I took a straight edge and I measured to find out what the lowest points were. So I know this was the lowest point right here, and I knew that this was the lowest point right here. So, I mean, we poured until we got to our lowest points. Now going back, I'm thinking I should have readjusted this before we started to make it a little bit higher, because this piece is individual. We could have made this piece higher, and I didn't. This piece I definitely could not have made higher. It's pretty much where it is. So poured, and then we stopped, and now we have all the ridges and stuff, right? Because the wood is warped, so it wasn't flat. So then that's when we used our router with the surfacing bit, and then just made little passes. And when I mean little, it is like a 1/16 of an inch, I think, or less. It's one mark on this is how much we went. It might have been like a 30-second. It's not very much. So I'll show it in the video of how much it cuts each time with this bit, right? So I used this bit first for the first couple passes, and that did this area right here, and that was about it until it started burning up. Then I swapped to the more expensive surfacing bit, Bad's the Bone. See, it's got all the replaceable hoodises on there. So this, I kept doing 1 tick mark increments. Well, then I got frisky and like, I'm gonna see if I can do 2 tick marks. So then I started doing 2 tick marks, and it would do it, but I'm pretty sure 2 tick marks was the limit. So I did all of that until I pretty much ran out of time, because I have a time limit how much I can work every night, and this is where we're at. I don't think I skipped any steps, except for the step, oh, no, we had an issue. So when I set this down, and this is after a couple passes of this one, I realized this. It was actually, but like I could rock it back and forth. So I figured what happened was, there's not a whole lot of support underneath here. So there's a 2x4 every 24 inches, and there's nothing else in the middle. So what I think happened was it bowed right here, right? So it pushed it down right there. And then of course that made a crown on the bottom of that. So I flipped it over and I took that crown off. And that's when the picture you saw with all the epoxy, it was all white, it looked like it was snowing. So I took a lot of that crown off, and then I flipped it back over on this side, and then finished doing all of this. So each pass, and I didn't time each pass myself, but when I got to this, doing a full length, when you're actually doing all of the wood, it was 5 minutes to do a pass. So it was actually a lot. One kind of weird thing that happened was the vibration, because I'm holding it like this, right? Back and forth, the vibration of the router like transferred to my fingers, and I could tap my fingers, and it was almost like I was tapping on something that vibrated, like tuning forks or something. It would go ding 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 ding. It's so weird. So that happened. So yeah, this is where we're at.
The epoxy looks really cool.
Yeah. It did turn out. There is a bug. Let's see if we can find the bug. Right there. So he snuck in there at some point, because between 0 and 4 hours, it's still tacky enough to where you could put a stick in there and, you know, take it out. It's kind of when you want to do your swirl marks. If you want special swirl marks, you do it at that time. After 6 hours, it's too thick, you can't do that. And then after 8 hours, it's like you can hit it and it'll come up on your finger. And then after 12 hours, it's pretty, like it's not tacky at all. But you can't do anything with it until after 20 hours is the minimum. Okay, and then it says it takes 72 hours to cure. So, but I started cutting on this because I was only cutting on, you know, the wood mainly. So I cut on that at 48 hours, I guess, from the first pour. It's definitely 24 after the second pour. So, oh, I had to raise my router sled. It wasn't tall enough, so I had to raise it up. And now we're at this point. This is where we are. This is the update. That took 12 minutes to give you this update of all the steps. Not even all the steps, because after we plane this, we still have to sand it. And then you have to put your final, because you can do two things, right? You can put a final layer of epoxy, which we're gonna do, or you can put oil on it, okay? We're gonna put epoxy on it. So we gotta sand this all to like 1,000 grit or something where it's like smooth.
Yeah.
And then we pour another layer of epoxy on it without the pigment. It's just a clear top coat.
Okay.
And then when that cures, we sand and polish that. So that's gonna be like up to 3,000 grit in theory. It's definitely gonna be with the polishing, like you're painting a car almost. So that's where we're at. And that is how to make your epoxy river table. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the comments.